I've been told I've got 5 minutes to speak to you. I've said that's completely impossible. So if I go over that, it'll just be less time for questions. There we go. What I'm going to do is, everyone's obviously fascinated, so I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes, just tell you a little bit about the house, set a bit of context. I'll literally spend no more than 30 seconds talking about me, and then we will actually talk about team building, and then we can get on to some questions if we've got any. Okay. This house, the site is mentioned in the Domesday Book. The oldest remaining parts of this house date back to 1670 something. A Barton, for those that you don't know, obviously you'll be aware as locals that you'll come across lots and lots of Bartons in the area. A Barton is simply the local manorial farm. If you go back to feudal times, there would have been one approximately every 10 to 15 miles, and they would have controlled the smaller farms and tenant farmers in the area. So that's, as I understand it, a very quick and easy summary of what a Barton is. And this place has been through many, many iterations over the years. It did have many hundreds of acres. For the last 20 years or so, it's been down to just 25, 30 acres, and that's what we've got today. It spent the last 20 years in purely private hands, and we bought it 3 years ago. It came about very simply because my wife had been coming to the area for all of her life. Her granddad was the milkman in Carmarthen, and she came here, spent all her summer holidays here, and had spent 25 years nagging me saying I want a cottage in Devon. And 4 years ago she told me, stop arguing about it, we are having a cottage in Devon. So this started out as a 2-bedroom cottage in Carmarthen. We didn't get on very well with the house search. It was all getting a bit boring, and one day I read this article about how ordinary houses rented for 12, 13 weeks a year, but big party houses rented for 52 weeks a year. And a sort of firework went off in my head, and I thought, do you know what, it might be cheaper to own a mansion than a cottage. And we were very lucky because it was right at the bottom, the beginning of the crash, horrific, this, that and the other. Found the place, managed to negotiate a great deal because of the circumstances, went and had a word with a nice man at Coutts, and here we are. And 3 years later, the place is absolutely booming. And really what we use the place for, it's any large family event that nobody's got a house big enough to do. So it may be a stag party, a hen party, Granny's 80th birthday, a 21st birthday party, a 40th wedding anniversary, and weddings. My own daughter got married in this very room in April. So that is what it gets used for. It is full for school holiday weeks. It is full for almost all other weekends for the rest of the year. It's not yet full for off-peak midweeks. So anyone's got any corporate uses for it like that, very happy to talk to you. That's what we're here for. We like doing business. So me, I have spent 35 years actually building teams. I spent 30 years working for a wonderful team called Haymarket Media Group, owned by a chap you may have heard of called Michael Heseltine. It's the reason I'm here tonight actually, because Kevin and I worked together there for many years. I was there for 30, you were there for 15 or so. And then we sort of met up again recently when I arrived here and realised he was in the area. I, during that time, have built many teams, led many teams, and had a lot of fun doing it. And for the last couple of years, since I left Haymarket a couple of years ago, and I've had a lot of fun building other smaller teams, this one, and sort of others in various other small businesses that I now run. So that's me, that's my career, that's this house, our family, what we're doing here, etc. Teams. My subject is team building. Talking about teams, you'll hear a lot of people rather glibly say, one of the great sort of things they'll say is, there's no I in team. Well, I've got news for those people, there's no we either. So we can dispense with all those sort of glib nonsenses and just get down to basics. I've built and led teams, as I say, for 35 years. But actually, I've never had to actually talk about building teams before. And I've never actually had to think about what it is that we do when we set about leading and building teams. So I've probably made a load of mistakes in the last week or so while I've been sitting, making the odd note and thinking about what I was going to actually talk to you about tonight. But it seemed to me that fundamentally, having said that I wasn't going to deal in glib sort of phrases, what leading teams and building teams is all about is three things: communication, communication, and communication. Since that is glib and boring, what we're actually instead going to talk about is communication, delegation, and empowerment, because they are, to my mind, the 3 key building blocks if you are going to build successful teams. So communication, it's the most important one. What does it actually mean? Effectively, it hangs off a number of actions. For me, the most important one, the first one, is about involvement. Can you get the people on the team involved, feeling as if it is their team, they're involved, and you've got to do that from regular briefings, regular getting of them together, regular talking to them, feedback sessions, looping back in all the way. So it's not just you talking to them, it's them talking back and everybody being involved. It sounds crashingly obvious, but it is amazing how people trying to build teams and lead teams ignore it and think they can just instruct rather than interact. The other thing seems to me, and it's a related point, but it's about shared experiences. Clearly what we're now trying to do actually with this place is get people to use this for shared experiences that can very much help build teams. But I'm not talking about that classic sort of outward bound type idea of team building. I'm talking about actually on the ground team building. Teams may not be groups of youngsters that you want to go and yomp across fields. They may be a bunch of old grannies that are going to sit and run a call centre who are absolutely not going to want to yomp across fields, but they're still a team that needs to be bound into a team ethic. So that comes from sharing all sorts of things. So, best example, debate I get into, I interact quite a lot with the restaurant industry, as many of you do here. Big debate within huge numbers of restaurants, the family meal. Do we just let staff eat whatever, or do we watch staff and slap their fingers when they try and get involved? Or do we sit them all down at 11 o'clock before lunch service and have family meal together? I'm a passionate believer in the family meal, whether it's in that restaurant situation or actually if it's in that other team that all of us are in, that most important team that all of us are in, which is our own families. Forgive me, but one of my hobby horses, I didn't mention one of the other things I do. I'm a director of the slow food movement, and one of my passionate hobby horses is that to my mind, something like 85% of children in this country no longer attend the most important educational establishment that you'll never hear Michael Gove talking about, but it's called the family dinner table. And that is where everybody learns to speak, learns to share, learns to talk, learns to interact, learns to debate, stand up for themselves, do all of those things. And it's a thing that has completely gone missing. And for me, if we want to build shared experiences, it would be the single most important one. I've built teams on the back of cooking for people. I invite people into my homes, wherever they are, whether it's this amazing place, or whether it's my home in London, or whether it was when I had much, tinier, more humble houses earlier in my career. I cooked for people. It was my way, not everyone can do it, but it's a very, very incredibly effective way. So there's an example for you. And it's about understanding. It's about building their understanding. So people understand the things they need to know. Rosalie talked about the importance of roles. It's just another way of stating the same thing. Obviously, everyone needs to understand their role in a team. To get that understanding, there's a thing you can do. You can sit them down and you can give them a description. You can give them a bunch of facts, this, that, and the other. People, by and large, don't relate to facts. They don't retain them. What they need is narrative. They can hang things on stories. My example of this, if you look at politicians the world over for the last 20, 25, well, not just 25 years, I'm sure in the history of politics, I'm not a historian, so I can't give you the examples, but just look at the people we all remember in our lifetimes: Reagan, Thatcher, Clinton, Blair. Whether you like them or dislike them, and many of them had far, far better, academically cleverer, whatever, opponents, but they were the storytellers. They knew how to communicate with their audiences, so they got their message across. And that, for me, is how to communicate with your teams, is don't just give them facts, but feed them stories, feed them narratives, and then they've got something to hook onto and want to belong to. Okay? So that's communication, involvement, shared experiences, understanding. Crikey, we're only a third of the way through. We need to speed up. So we've communicated, we now need to delegate. Ownership. For me, delegation for a start, it must be delegation without abdication. So we are talking, when we're talking about building teams, It's not just about the teams, it's about the leadership part of it as well. Ownership is about allowing your team to feel that they own what it is, whether it be the project or their part of the project or whatever. But if they don't feel passionately that it is theirs, then they will not take responsibility. Yeah? And you cannot expect them to be accountable if you haven't given them responsibility. And again, my way of looking at that, I mean, you will hear lots of business theorists talk about the importance of equity, of giving people ownership and this, that and the other. I'll tell you something that's far more important than equity and far more important than ownership is, what other people will phrase EQ, emotional quotient. If you can actually get under people's skin and actually make them feel that you've given them emotional ownership of their department, their business, their whatever else, that will actually beat equity 9 times out of 10 with most people. Not everybody, but with most people. Expectations. There's an awful lot of what I talked about so far that may be characterised by some people as me trying to breed a bunch of agony aunts, that we're all going to take all these people and stroke them and love them and this and that. Yeah, we are. But you know what? We're only doing it not because we want to breed a race of agony aunts, but because we want high expectations. So if we don't put expectations on our people, don't expect to get great teams either. And the last part of delegation for me is about decisions. Make them and expect them to make them. Lots of them and very, very quickly. The number of decisions that it is critical to make right first time is frankly minuscule. Even actually, if you're setting off this morning on a mission to Mars, yeah, you've got to get the rocket pointing vaguely in the right direction, but you know what? It's going to take you 3 weeks to get there, and you've got plenty of time to keep veering and changing course and this, that and the other. So there are, yes, of course, the first thing you've got to do is evaluate and say, is this an absolutely critical decision that I've got to get right first time? But I guarantee you 90% of them, it'll be better if you make a decision, give everybody on that team that sense of going forward, that sense of leadership, that sense of empowerment that comes from those decisions, that they will love those decisions, but keep reviewing them. And if they're wrong, say they're wrong, and we'll change them. 9 times out of 10, it'll be better than sitting on your backside and pondering and being desperate to make the right decision. A decision is always better than no decision. Okay, the communication, the delegation, empowerment. Obviously, a lot of what we've already talked about is already talking a great deal about empowerment. But so much business today, I think you've got to give your people the authority to act. There are so many instances in business today where actually you, on a day-to-day level, have no opportunity to shine. An example, if you sell, for instance, insurance, what you actually want and what your customer wants is to never call upon it. So how do you get the opportunity to show what a great product it is? Or you're a car salesman and you've just sold someone a brand new BMW. So it works. Great. No one's going to give any points for the fact that it works. They expected it to work. Actually, where you can get the most phenomenal opportunities is when it doesn't work. Actually, when that BMW breaks and you, that dealer, have an opportunity now to shine. The customer will he'll blame BMW, not the dealer, and B, he'll forgive you if you deal with that breakdown absolutely brilliantly. You can't deal with that breakdown absolutely brilliantly if the first time a customer walks in with a problem, the service receptionist or whatever has got to say, oh, well, I'll have to ask my boss, or I'll have to do this, this and the other. But if they're empowered to do something, and that's something, maybe something quite dramatic, then there is the opportunity to turn around a potential disaster into a real winner, yeah? Which just owning and driving that BMW every day was never going to do, because so much of modern life actually is just, flat and level like that, and you don't get those opportunities. So actually take those mistake opportunities, empower your people and let them turn them into real positives. The thing that will come out of that is if you've delegated and empowered those people, guess what? They'll make some decisions that you didn't like. They'll make some mistakes. And what have you got to do? You've got to back their decisions. You've got to say, well done for making a decision. Now, come over here. Privately, I'd like to tell you why I do back you, and I'll absolutely back you, but the next time, here's why I'd rather you did, and here's why, and this, that, and the other, and they'll learn as well. Yeah? So empower them, give them authority, back them, and then praise them very, very much in public. And if they need a bollocking, do it very much in private. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, is what building teams and leadership is all about. Communication, delegation, and empowerment. So we keep it in nice, easy threes. Except there is a fourth. Just occasionally, you get a gift out of nowhere. You weren't expecting it, it wasn't planned for, etc. And as the leader of that team, you need to be awake and aware the whole time, because it might take weeks to come, it might take months to come, but when it comes, you grab it. It may be an occasion, something that happens, and it goes out, breaks all the rules, and you just do it. You know, I was prepared always, for instance, I would always have a case of champagne in a fridge, waiting for those occasions to celebrate, to do something. A gift may not just be something like that. This is a classic example. This is the easiest team I've ever built in the last 3 years, this house. Why? Because I got a gift. It's called this house. This house surpasses everything else. You can have all the theories you like, but actually the team here in this house, and they're very much a virtual team because of course they're cleaners and they're gardeners and they're people that don't work for us full time, so you have to mould a virtual team. The gift of this house is its sheer beauty and all the rest. So actually they're not loyal to me, they're not loyal to the team. You know, there is an element to which they are loyal to the house. So, you know, not every business has that, but you have to be awake and aware and take those gifts when you've got them and be, you know, absolutely up for it. Okay, so communication, delegation and empowerment. That's what I believe it's all about. And that's me. Any questions?